Can everybody hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought before we jump into the topic, maybe we center a little bit. So close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. So breathe in through your nose, and out through your mouth. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And the first thing I actually want you to do is, as you continue to breathe, I want you to check in with your mind. Just take a look at it, see if it's going places, see what it's thinking about. Is it present? Is it in Long Beach, or wherever you came from? And the next thing I want you to do is check in with your heart. How are you emotionally feeling? Are you feeling anxious? Feeling happy, sad, excited for more cure time? And then lastly, I want you to check in with your body. So, are there any aches and pains? Anything that feels really good? Maybe you're feeling sore because you worked out today. And then scan your body, see how that feels. And take a few final deep breaths with me. So in through your nose, and out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, and then out through your mouth. Awesome. So go ahead and open your eyes. What did we notice? Any observations, thoughts? The talk of the lecture is, who am I? If that helps with any sort of observations or thoughts you guys might have. Nobody? Y'all just went wherever your mind went, huh? Jupiter? They found some water on the moon or something, apparently you guys went there.
I could feel my body. It was tingling, feel
Very
certain
good.
things.
Anybody else?
I found when you said if my mind is present, I checked in with my mind, and I was trying to see if it was present. There was a bunch of thoughts, and I was trying to make it present, but it was like 100%.
Very good. Did anybody notice that when you were scanning your mind, your heart, and your body, anybody have the question, well, who's doing that? Because if you're your mind, then how can you observe your mind? If you're your emotions, then how can you observe your emotions? And if you're a body, then how can you scan your body? So we're going to just, my hope is that you guys will have more feedback. Otherwise, I'm going to have to talk for 30 minutes, and that's not as exciting for me. So think of some stuff. But the talk for tonight is, who am I? Why am I here? And the last part that wasn't was, where am I going? And so who am I? That's actually a pretty big question. I mean, it's like an existential, who are you? I mean, it's a pretty big bucket to fill, right? So who am I? Why am I here, and where am I going? And as I was kind of meditating on this, the who am I, so what is that? When we say I am a painter, or I am a musician, or I'm a business person? What are the ways that we identify? What are some of the adjectives that you guys would use to describe, or the nouns that you guys would use to describe who you are?
Job title.
What do you do?
We just identify with our job title.
Okay.
Okay.
Our name.
Okay. We all have names, right? Everybody got a job? Or if you don't have a job, do you identify with that? What else do we identify with?
Nationality.
Nationality. So Brother Roman over there called me a brother. You know, so nationality. What else? Relationships. Yeah. Am I single? Am I in a relationship?
Dad, son.
Yeah. Am I a father? Am I a mother? Am I none of those things? Politics. Oh. Oh. Am I Democrat? Am I independent? Am I Republican? Who's my president? Barack Obama. No. What else?
It's like how you want to be seen
So what does that mean?
in general. So anything that you say is how you want to be seen
Mhm.
or how you feel you are. So whatever comes to you, which you didn't even give us a chance to think about.
Yeah.
But if I were to like close my eyes and be like, who am I? All these words would pop into my head with how I want to be seen and how I feel I am. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. So there's almost two perspectives. So how you feel you are internally, and then how others perceive you,
How
And
you want to be perceived.
or how you want to be perceived.
Right.
Which would be more internal. So how I want to be perceived, and then how people actually perceive me.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's pretty common. You're like this. You don't know me. I am so much more than that, right? Any other thoughts?
Maybe Canadian by country. Canadian, American.
So nationality. So we have race, and then we also had nationality.
Your alter ego.
Oh, Poppy Swain Okay.
Maybe state, right? State or city. Alabama, something.
Yeah, what state we're from,
What a religion is.
what our religion is. That's also a big one.
We are something that comes to our mind and we think our thought is something that we are.
So that's kind of deep. So whatever our mind thinks we are at a particular moment. So it's like when I was a baby, I thought, I'm a baby. I probably actually didn't think that. But back in the day, I used to, I look at a picture of myself and I was like, oh man, I was a baby back then. And now I'm 32. You know, I can't play basketball as much as I used to when I was 19 years old. You know, then I was athletic, now I'm not. So, all these things, right? So we have so many ways that we identify. And so, just thinking about who am I, it's such a broad thing to consider. And I guess my last question is, well, does it matter? I mean, now we kind of live in a day and age where it's like, oh, labels. Nobody likes all these labels. They're just words. Breathe into the moment. Right? So does it matter? I mean, are we overthinking it? Any thoughts on that? Does it really matter how we define ourselves?
I think so.
Or if we do?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Because it gives you purpose. You know who you are, what you stand for, what you want, why you're alive. If you have no identity at all, even if the identity is to be a part of all,
Mm-hmm.
then you still have something that you identify with.
Mm-hmm.
So without who am I, there is no you.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no you, then what makes you wake up every day?
Mm-hmm. So she said, if there is no you, if there is no, yeah. Yeah. So if there is no you, what even gets you up in the morning? which is a very interesting point. And so I think when I hear that, oh, I don't like labels and that sort of thing, I mean, it's an interesting point, but is it practical? I mean, because it's one thing just to philosophize about this or have some idea that exists inside of our heads, but it's another thing that when we go out and actually live in the world, like, do we actually believe that? And so within the Bhagavad Gita, which is a really ancient text that goes into this question quite a bit. Who am I? What is this world? What's my relationship to a higher power or the source of everything? And that's actually the first question is, who am I? What am I doing here? And in considering that point, who am I? There's really three ways that they break it down. So, what is the body? So we all have bodies, we all have minds, and then is there something greater than that? Is there something else that's beyond that whole thing? And so I wanted to go through each one. So do you feel like people identify a lot with the body nowadays? Does that seem to have effect on society if we identify with the body?
Yes.
What are some of the ways that we can think that people identify with the body nowadays?
Plastic surgery.
Plastic surgery.
Instagram.
Instagram. Hashtag. Noise. Fashion. Selfies.
Oh yeah, I want to say, building off of like some people's answers right now, I want to say working out, like, so that like at some point at least, like they can post on like social media, like as like post that picture perfect
Want
body.
to work out, get those chiseled abs, and bam, all on the Instagram. Hashtag keto. Right? But I even think he goes deeper than that. I mean, we already kind of mentioned some of these things. So, race, nationality, what else? Religion, health. I mean, age. I mean, we look at society and kind of a lot of the issues, or a lot of where we find meaning with regards to getting money or somebody thinking about us in a particular way. Isn't that all based on the body? Right? It's like if somebody comes in here and calls me the N-word, and I get super agitated by it, and I'm like, screw those people. I'm going on Instagram and posting an article about how we should all see the best in each other. Like, isn't that fully based on the body? Right? And so, okay, so now we thought about the body. So maybe that's not such a good way to run society. It seems to be the way that our standard operating principle works. That, or not you all's, but within society, when we see all the major conflicts that are going on, these are all based on seemingly body relationships that people identify with. And then what about the mind? I mean, that literally changes every 2 seconds, at least for me. But people are always thinking, oh, I think this. This is my opinion. I went to this talk at Chapman University because my wife is actually a professor there. And they were talking about now in the university system how before they can talk about anything that's controversial, the professor has to give what's called a trigger warning. So that if it's something that's maybe outside of what you would hear in your normal day-to-day, because of our minds are so sensitive, they have to tell you, hey, this is a trigger warning. This might actually go against your beliefs because we don't want to agitate you too much. So do we find that people really are strong about their beliefs?
Yeah.
All right? Do we find any conflicts in society based on this?
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
Huh? Yeah? So then if we're not our mind, and that's all, I mean, when you think about it in the West, that's all we get. And when you think about the building blocks of what we get as a society, what do we usually get told that we are? We're either the mind, or the body, or we're some connection of the two. But we just concluded right here in like a 5-minute experiment that by identifying with the mind and by identifying with the body, that causes a lot of conflict. So then what are we? And how might that relate to the experiment that you guys just did when we started our meditation? Who's actually that observer or that thing behind the mind that can actually go in and say, oh, I'm actually observing the mind, or I'm observing the intelligence, or I'm observing the body? Any thoughts?
That which powers the body.
What was that?
That which powers the body.
That which powers the body. So what is that?
Your soul.
Your soul? Okay. Any other ideas?
Consciousness.
Consciousness? But how could it be consciousness? We can't prove that. That sounds super far out and kind of hippie spiritual.
But how can you prove the soul?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you guys.
Near-death experiences and people coming back. Talking
Yeah.
about life after life. Or consciousness after life.
Yeah.
Dreams.
Dreams.
What's the difference between a living body and a dead body?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So if I just passed out right now, you still have my same body here, would you guys be freaked out or what? If I just like died right on the, that'd be a little weird, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit, because it's like, well, what left? The body's still here. And it's like when you go to sleep at night, the brain's still there, but where did the mind go? But I don't remember, but sometimes you don't even remember what you dreamt about, but there's still some consciousness there. Otherwise, every time you went to sleep, you'd be clinically dead. Right? And so with that in mind, the Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita actually does an interesting experience, or an interesting experiment that illustrates not only that we're not the body, but that also we do what's called reincarnate, even within our current bodies. And so there's a verse that says, Dehi no shmin yata dehe kalmaram albanam jara, where basically as the body continuously travels from boyhood, or as the spirit soul, which we said, the soul continuously travels from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul continuously passes to another body at death, and a sober person actually isn't bewildered by such a change. And so that's kind of a far out statement, because usually we think of reincarnation as something that happens when, I came back, like my last life. I think I was actually talking to a Christian, and he was saying, I think in my last life, I was like this or like that, or maybe in my next life I want to come back as a dolphin. He didn't say that, but, or like it'd be cool to be like a bald eagle or something. And so they're even saying within this life, and science actually supports this, that every 7 years, you actually get an entirely new body. Every single cell in your body completely transforms. So you think about, you can just look at baby pictures of yourself, right? Does anybody still have that body? They just popped out of their mom, and they're like, I'm here, it's me. No, and so science actually says it's not that body just kind of expands and just stretches a bit. You get like some pliers and they just kind of stretch you out. It's actually that your baby body is actually gone. The only thing that's left is that really nice picture that you have. And the same thing when you're 14, the same thing when you're 21, the same thing when you're 28, and so on. And so that's some small evidence, because ultimately you still have the conception that you existed in your baby body. That's why if you looked at a picture of yourself, you'd say, oh, that was me. And then you look in the mirror and say, oh, this is still me. Right? And so with that in mind, that's what the Vedas say. So who am I? That I'm a spirit soul. And what's interesting, and that's with regards to whoever said it's not necessarily difficult, but I guess I said that. How do you know that? That actually, when we talk about identity, and putting words or conceptions about the way that we identify ourselves, that's really important for how we orient ourselves in this world. Because ultimately, if I think I'm black and people are, holding my people down and all this sort of stuff, then I'm super agitated by that bodily conception. Or if I think I'm a male and, live in a patriarchal society and women are inferior, and it's like that actually affects my version of self-image. Or if I think I'm my thoughts and I think that, I'm so intelligent and somebody who's not as intelligent, I should have pride in that. In fact, all the things that we tend to identify with, I find, at least in my own experience, the more I identify with something, not only does the more suffering it create, but also the more pride I have in that particular cause. It doesn't actually create humility. You don't find people who are walking around like, we even have slogans like black pride, brown pride. It like means something to like be black or be this or be that, right? Am I the only one that sees this, or? Okay. Right? And so, to have a healthy conception, because that's what we're taught. You look around, socialization, you're either rich, you're poor, you're happy, you're depressed, you have anxiety, you have this, you have that. There's so many ways that we can, you just kind of look at the giant vat of identifications and we can just pull out one and just say, oh, I'm into that. That's who I am. Or I'm a collection of them. Or the kind of popular thing, I don't like labels, I'm going to hyper-label myself. But then if you think I'm that label that I just said, then I'm going to say, well, no, I'm not that at all. Right? So these labels obviously have a real implication, a real worldly impact on our day-to-day experiences. It's not just my opinion, we all see this. You look at the United States and the status of where we're in right now. Obviously, people having a bodily conception of life isn't really helping people out too much. In fact, it seems that the more people identify with the body, actually the more misery that's being created for them. But these are the labels that we're given. And so something else that's in the Vedas, or the Bhagavad Gita, is that we actually have to have proper information. And even though it can be directly perceived, it's hidden in plain sight. So they actually say that to have knowledge of the self is actually the most secret of all secrets. But through direct perception, through direct perception, it's actually the perfection of spirituality. And if we can actually realize the self, it's everlasting. So by having this knowledge, engaging in that information actually makes it everlasting, and it's joyfully acknowledged. That understanding that we're actually something greater than our bodies actually creates joy for us. Because when we start realizing, oh, maybe I'm not the body, oh, maybe I'm not the mind, then what does that also do? It stops forcing me to go out in the world and think that those bodily conceptions are going to fulfill me. That when I get my respect as a black man in this world because the white man's holding me down, or whatever our bodily conceptions are, that when I get the pride or the reciprocation that I'm expecting, the pride or whatever it may be, it's subtle. It's not easy to perceive. And so because there's so many influences that can actually take us away from identifying with the true self.
Another important benefit is if you are not associating with your mind, it's a great freedom basically. Ideally, there are two kinds of people. One, most people are slave to the mind. The other people is they just distance themselves from the mind. The people are slave to mind. Mind says, I want drugs, I want alcohol, I want pizza, I want this, I want that, I want, okay master, I'll fulfill it. So whatever tempted mind sees, like while driving, the In-N-Out burger smell comes, I want In-N-Out burger. Okay master, I want to go there.
Yeah.
So those guys are like slave to mind. They yield to the temptation.
Yeah.
Once you disconnect from your mind and body, and then once you see yourself, That's where the self-control is.
Yeah.
Self-control leads to right direction. No self-destructing destructive habits.
So by having the proper identification, it actually allows you to associate and identify with something higher so that all the vices that we may or may not have don't start controlling us, which is what you end up seeing. Somebody really identifies with their job, they're maybe not as satisfied, and then what do? They go to happy hour. And then maybe they start going to too many happy hours, and then maybe they get a little too drunk too often, and then that leads them to a dark place. And so these identifications, again, have real implications for how we walk through this world, what we think. And so what really resonates with me with regards to the Vedic conception is, well, maybe we're all something truly greater than the limitations that we put on our own self. Like, how wonderful is that? Like, we're actually putting the limitations on ourselves. It's not actually society. It's actually within our own mind that the limitation is being created because we have a strong urge to be that thing. And if we actually engage in a process, because as we mentioned, it's hard not to get caught up in that stuff. I mean, greed, anger, I mean, those things are intoxicating to a sense. Like, I mean, if somebody disrespects you, isn't it kind of hard to take the higher road and not get a little mad or frustrated with that person? I just went camping, and I feel like there's nothing greater than going out into nature and just seeing, feeling that sense of like, there's something so much greater than yourself. And one of the guys there, he kept ragging on billionaires. He was just like, none of them are good. So we got to stop him. He was even making some super like gnarly comments. And it just made me think, like, he was a good intentioned person, but the challenge is if he's sitting there getting angry because he obviously identifies with himself as somebody who's not that, then how is that actually expanding the circle or making the world a better place if he's attacking a situation from anger as opposed to love, as opposed to a place of wholeness where he's not having to take away somebody else's wholeness, right? And so, I guess as a thought, we're going to go into Kirtan next. A thing about the soul, as described within the Bhagavad Gita, is that it's actually, it's what's called Sat Chit Ananda. Let's maybe say that together. So Sat Chit Ananda. So we're full of we're full of eternality. So the soul actually is greater than the time of this body. It's actually something that transcends this body. We're full of knowledge, and we're actually full of bliss. And while those three qualities would be good enough in and of themselves, I think the fact that we're full in and of ourselves makes it that much more profound, that we're actually fully whole. We actually don't need to be satisfied by all these external influences. And imagine living in a society where that fullness can actually be manifest in what's called Atmarama. You want to say that with me? So Atmarama?
Atmarama.
So that means self-satisfied. Right? So happy. When you hear happiness is within, Bhagavad Gita is into that. But it's hard because there is external influences. We have society. We all have jobs. We all have to be good at our jobs. We have to make money. We have significant others. We have so many responsibilities. And so how do we walk in this world where everything that used to be our identity now becomes a reminder of how full we actually are? And it becomes a reminder of our innate fullness. And that's our process. So when we look at this Hare Krishna mantra, so Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to remember that we're all deeply connected to something that's greater than all of us. And that connection, that thing that we're all connected to, which is Krishna, is within inside every single one of our hearts. And that's what makes us full. Krishna means the all-attractive. and that peace that's inside of you makes you eternally beautiful and unlimited in that beauty. And actually, when that beauty leaves, that's why if I died right here, you guys would be like, I'm not so into it. But as long as I am here, then it's like, let's like kind of talk about, spirituality and stuff. And that becomes the reminder. And so, I ask you guys, there's books, there's so many things, there's people here, there's a spiritual community, and that's what the reminder is on a daily basis. How do I commit to being full? How do I commit to be self-satisfied and not entrenched in all the other stuff in which I can identify with? So, thank you guys so much. Hare Krishna.